Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Better Place, where we talk with practitioners of international law, loosely defined, and where today we will continue the focus of Season 2 on business and human rights, a growth area in international law, in human rights law, and in businesses' social responsibilities. Really exists at the nexus of those three areas of interest. In this episode, I speak with Juan Andrés Cano, the founder and CEO of the PeaceStartup Foundation in Colombia. Hello, Juan. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me to your lovely podcast. I am really happy to be here.
Your name is the only Spanish that I will butcher today. Did I do okay?
Sorry, I missed you a little bit.
Yeah. Did I pronounce your name okay? Did I pass?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like Juan, no?
Juan. Oh, well, there you go. So I didn't.
Juan.
I failed.
Yeah.
Juan.
It's okay.
Juan. Juan and I, we know one another from shared interests in pursuing improving businesses' human rights practices in conflict-affected areas. We're part of a global network. And we have met one another through that. I really look forward to getting into your background, though, how you got your start, how you got to where you are now, and learning a little bit more about your journey, as well as your insights into what it is you're doing, Juan. A little bit more of a professional bio, if you will. Juan Cano is an international consultant, serial entrepreneur with a focus on human rights, ethics, and sustainability in the business sector. Juan is a lawyer by training and is passionate about project management, leveraged innovation in information and communications technologies. As a business and human rights consultant and CEO of PeaceStartup Foundation, Juan works with large corporations in Colombia in various sectors like the financial sector, the telecommunications, energy security, infrastructure sectors, all with the objective of the sustainable development of that country that has been racked by armed conflict for so many years. And let me end that professional bio with a little award. Juan and the PeaceStartup Foundation received in 2015 the Oslo-based Business for Peace Award for all these efforts. Did I get all that correct, Juan?
Yes, maybe I should add that.
Yes, please.
As a consultant, it's not only for Colombia, but even more for Europe corporations that operate in Latin America. And I think that it's important because it's the perspective that I should get to this role was a very global perspective.
And Juan, do you do that consulting now in tandem with PeaceStartup, or was that sort of a stepping stone, a past stepping stone in your career?
No, my main focus 4 or 5 years ago was the role as a consultant in business and human rights for corporations, especially European corporations. But 4 years from there, I have focused in the PeaceStartup Foundation that have some area of work in business and human rights. But now we are working in this moment more with 2 kind of companies, corporations. The first one is Latin American corporation that are trying to improve their due diligence. And of course operate especially in Latin American countries. And the other is Colombian companies that are trying to operate in some conflict areas. Because they are operating now in the main cities, but in a country like Colombia, you see a huge gap between cities and territories or rural areas. No? So this is.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt, Juan. And so it sounds like you have done and do consulting for large global, regional companies. You advise Colombian, national sort of level companies. But then at Peace Startup Foundation, you're also part of creating new business.
Yes, we in the PeaceStartup Foundation, we define us as an accelerator. So we help local small business to improve their capacities to raise capital, access to markets, and improve their knowledge to come to have more competence to be part of this market. But
so
it's important to say that this is the
go.
focus of our company. But in that way, our purpose is connect the local entrepreneurs with that. And in that connection, we see that we need to connect it with large companies from Colombia and even from the world, because some of the solutions that they need are offering for banks or for technological companies or for machinery tech companies for differentiate digital than technological. So in that way, we start to talk, for example, with an insurance company that like to understand how they can help or even build a market in the territories. And in that way, the experience I had with the corporation are very useful, because we open a conversation with corporation about how they can work with this small business in complex territories, like the rural or transitional areas in Colombia. You know?
Yeah. So, okay, that was a really good introduction to the startup of Peace Startup Foundation. But where does the peace come in? How would you describe, why is it the Peace Startup Foundation?
We start this organization 6 or 5 years ago, in the moment when the government of Colombia are working with the guerrilla of Las FARC in the process to build the peace agreement. Right. And in that time, I was part of another startup working with corporations in help the business sector to understand the risks and so on. And some person of the startup world asked us how they can do to participate in the peace process. And we was part of this startup environment, and was like, why we don't use the methodologies and the capacities of the startup work or the startup ecosystem to deliver some solutions of the more conflict areas. And with that, we start to work with entrepreneurs, corporation, international cooperation, to think how connect these worlds, no? The peace world, if you know, the peace ecosystem, and the startup ecosystem. And with that, Peace Startup was the name.
Right. And so the notion of Peace Startup Foundation is not just, it sounds like it's working at two levels in terms of peace and human rights. It's starting up and generating new businesses, which in and of itself is part of that economic peace dividend. But then as well, you want the companies that you help accelerate to be themselves respectful of, to be responsible businesses and sustainable businesses. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's not, that was not part of the vision. That was more part of how we operate. So if you go to try to help a company found for victims or demobilized people, there have a lot of social component. But the context of that territory is really rich in terms of environmental possibilities or environmental needs. Here in Colombia, we have a lot of water, biodiversity, agricultural diversity even. So you have the environmental issue there, because it's part of what the business can do. And finally, all of the process to generate coordination between communities, with the state, with the international cooperation, is a kind of need to reflection about governance. No, so you have this ESG as a natural part of the conversation with entrepreneurs, and for me it was easy because I came from the social responsibility and human rights issues
Right.
that are trying to talk of that. But in the practice, the territories needs this ESG approach, of course, with the change that you need to do because they are a small business, but without that, they not be profitable and sustainable.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm wondering, can you share any success stories? Are there any specific examples from your time at PeaceStartup that you say, yeah, we did awesome then, with that business or with that community?
I think that we have some success. One is in some area called Dabeiba. Dabeiba is a PEDET territory. A PEDET territory is in Spanish is it's like territories that the peace agreement decide to prioritize because of the conflicts they was, no, they had, no. So these PEDET territories have some areas where when the desmobilized people will be concentrated. So they receive some resources from the state and some help for international cooperation to start businesses. So once the peace agreement ends, they have land and some ideas of business. So this is a very is a coffee growers area. So they start their own coffee produce area. So we connect them with some roasters of special coffee that start to work with them to buy them coffee and help them to improve the quality of their coffee, understand the kind of species that have better taste. And this company that is a central organization, a central business, is now working with them, and they are exporting high quality coffees with a good history of peace. They call Urbania, is the name of the roaster.
Urbania.
Urbania. And the desmobilized people have this brand that is called Trinidad. So this is a kind of success history, because our role was only, in this case, but not only, help the desmobilized people to understand that they can have an international market and connect them with a roaster and an exporter that understand the global market to work together. No, so they are now working together, even if we are not in that project now. This is a relation that
because they matured and you graduated. Juan, that's great. And I'll ask you afterwards to send me a link and the correct spelling for the coffee company and everything, because it sounds like listeners to this podcast might be able to look at their favorite coffee shop for that brand. So I'll put it down in the podcast link. That sounds great. And industries, you mentioned agriculture, biodiversity. Obviously, I think a lot of people, when they think Colombia, think rich, lush agricultural opportunities. There's also a lot of mining going on at a much larger scale, I believe, in Colombia. Are you involved at all in the mining sector space? Is PeaceStartup, I should say, involved in the mining sector space?
So more than the mining sector, we are involved with the oil sector, because Colombia is even more an oil country than a mining. We have mining. We have the biggest coal mining in the world, that is Cerrejón. But our work is more with the oil and gas sector, and with them. But that we are working with them is all of the social investment, voluntary or mandatory investment that they should do in the history of the country was using for facilitate their operations. But now they are thinking in this doctrine of value share and build together with communities. So the path of entrepreneur or the startup path is really connected with this idea of value share. So some of our finance, with some of the projects we are operating, received resources of private investment, voluntary private investment of some pipelines of oil that cross the country. So they are investment in entrepreneurs with this idea that the entrepreneur path is a good way to share value. No? Because part of the problem of a country like Colombia is the biggest investment have focused in oil, gas, mining sector, infrastructure. But the part of the problem is you should build the economic capacity to create competitiveness in the long term, especially, for example, in where you have oil opportunities, at the same time you have agricultural opportunities. So now they are trying to understand and to break this dependency to oil industry or mining industry investment at the same time, or with social perspective, investment at the same time in agricultural business. So we are a kind of operating some, we operate some of these resources to create entrepreneurs or business, small businesses,
and it's
with other industries, not only.
Yeah, sorry, and a key element of this is the connecting. You're facilitating the connections between big companies, small companies, and those entrepreneurs on the ground, it sounds like. So
I think in a country like Colombia, they invest more than they invest more or less between 1 or 4% of all of this budget of investment in social issues, because the risk of social problems or environmental problems is huge. So part of this 1 to 4%, maybe 6% sometimes, more or less the middle of that is mandatory because of the environmental license. But the other half, of course, that depends on how you see the numbers, is voluntary investment money that they use to reduce the risk of impacts, even of human rights impacts, or reduce the risk, or to have problems with communities, because here the communities have a lot of problems. So if they don't have the state that covers their problems, they go to the companies. So part of the challenge that a country like this have is that kind of or social investment are always reactive. So the promise of the startup path is how we build long-term business that at the same time build economic development.
Nice. And you just mentioned human rights, and we've both mentioned it a few times. I am curious, though, if I may ask explicitly. So, especially because you've been a consultant, you are a business and human rights consultant. I'm curious, so you're working on developing sustainable businesses in a fragile country, in a post-conflict country, Colombia. What do human rights have to do with that? I mean, is business and human rights the right paradigm? Does it add value to your work? Or is peace or human security or some other paradigm better framework for what you do?
Yes, it's a very difficult question that you did. But in the case of in my perspective, even more than the of my work, I feel all of this framework are useful to tell a good story about what we are trying to do. But at the same time, for us in PeaceStartup, it's even more important the biggest concept of human dignity that is completely related of human rights. How we build human security, not the framework, but the issue to work together to ensure that all of the human will be secure in our biggest perspective. The sustainability concept, even more than only think in terms of SDGs or framework, and the issue of climate that is more related to how we think the global issues as a as a one humanity. This is a very philosophical perspective, but for us, the framework are more useful to talk with the international cooperation ecosystem and with the business sector to have some framework to measure and follow our work or our proposal to the business sector. So as a framework are useful to improve the conversation, but not necessary to improve the path or improve the vision or the purpose, because at the end our purpose is, I feel, even biggest than the frameworks.
Yeah.
So this is part of the answer.
No, I like that. And Juan, before I move on from Peace Startup, I'm curious, what is you're the founder, but you're also the CEO of the Peace Startup Foundation. What does your regular day look like? What do you do day to day?
In abstract, I am in charge of the strategy, but the strategy, I think, in modern times means have the capacity to I miss the word in English, to aprovechar, the translator to
everyone quick grab their Google Translate.
To create a competitive advantage with what the market is offered to you. That is the theoretical part. But in my day-to-day, that means that I always looking for opportunities and try to concretize that opportunities in what we will do in the next 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. Now, this is my first act. But even if I am talking about 6 months or 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years, my day-to-day work is always connected with how I can have the capacity to build this competitive advantage now. So that in Spanish is aprovechar las oportunidades. No? Take the opportunities for us. And the second is, but it's connected with that, is PeaceStartup is a small company. We are 40 persons in only one country. So we are growing, and a company that is small and in the process to grow needs to solve a lot of problems. So part of my role is to solve emergency problems.
Yeah. Yep.
So if I abstract, my day-to-day is aprovechar. I don't remember the word in English. Let me check. Aprovechar emergency opportunities and
crisis management type of thing.
Exactly, and solve emergency problems, but the both are connected. If
you clearly love what you do, Juan. Is there something in particular that really excites you about your work, like right now?
I need to mention that I think the most exciting thing is the process to lead people and see how they can do even better things than you. In concrete terms, for example, in technological, in the relation with the persons, in the commercial issues, because we are involved in a lot of areas.
Yes.
And the second maybe is see it grow. Is when in the foundation happens things that I am not involved. I think that is like, you are doing that project.
Yes.
I didn't know, and I think you said 3
your
months
child
ago
is growing up.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Beautiful.
It's like I am now a father, but my child have 3 years more or less. So she's small, but it's very similar with the
and clearly you're only 3 years in, because you've got such a beautiful head of hair still, Juan. That'll go, trust me. As your beautiful daughter grows older, I'm sure she will cause you all sorts of angst, but also a joy. So Juan, let's backtrack a little bit with the time remaining. You have a law degree, right?
Yes.
From Columbia?
Yes, from
Columbia University. And has that come in handy at all? Are you using the knowledge, the skills
Yes.
in your current line of work, or?
Yes, absolutely. The first company we built was a law firm, very early once we finished the university. A crazy endeavor, but in a kind of with a kind of succeed. But so I mentioned that because in the law ecosystem, I find the friends, the partners to start this path to try to be an entrepreneur. No? And the other is we are involved in a legal ecosystem. So everything in our work have some contract or legal perspective, but to finance the philosophic perspective of law was really useful for me. All the business ethics, human rights, and business perspective. The idea of human dignity, and all of that. The idea of what is the role of the state, are part in how I be involved in the law.
So law student, you founded a law firm. You were involved in a law firm, and then you jumped to be your next in your career path. What the next stepping stone was? Business and human rights consultant.
No, before I start as a business ethics consultant.
Okay.
I started with a client that was, I think I can mention, was the Petrobras, that is the state oil Brazilian company. That my fair contract there was translate the ethics code to Spanish and start to connect it with the culture of the operation of the Petrobras in Colombia. And that was really useful because the Instituto the Instituto Ethos is a kind of relevant think tank in Brazil that moved the corporations from Brazil and from Latin America to think in terms of ethics and sustainability. So I started to think the business ethic, once ethics was not only corruptions or laundry assets and so on, but more like how we think about our role as a company in a society in terms using the ethics. The philosophical ethic to understand that.
And that was your light bulb moment. You sort of found your calling. It sounds like that job. And business and human rights was just a natural evolution from business ethics for you, or?
For me, it was because in really philosophical terms, for me, the human rights framework, not the business and but the human rights was a kind of moral agreement or moral consensus about what the humanity wants to be, no? And that is moral more than ethics, because it's like, okay, this idea of human dignity and how we should manage liberties and so on was a kind of course, there we have a kind of framework to improve more the conversation about the agenda, about what is possible, what is the path to achieve the human rights, because you know, in this world, the human rights are still at an agenda. You know? The human rights are systematic violate for the countries, for the companies. This happens. No, it's not. It's not. It is not I am not a pessimist. No? I am really optimist, but at the same time, I try to be realistic. No?
Right, eyes wide open. And on this journey, you've had mentors, Juan, that have helped you.
Of course. See, I think I have 3 relevant mentors to mention. The first is was my dad. My dad is a lawyer in the criminal law. So with my dad, I start the second company we built, that is Semilla, that is an ethic consultancy firm, and she was really relevant. Give me books and readings and share conference and so on. The second I need to mention is maybe Ernesto Borda. Ernesto Borda is a relevant consultant in Colombia in the field of risk, of reputational risk. So their perspective is very, marketing vision of brands and how the social problems or environmental problems create or can reduce value. So for me, it was really amazing to know him and understand that the ethics issues, the human rights issues are not only social or development issues, are business problems, are completely connected with what the business sector or ecosystem is going to do. Last but not least,
yes, I've been keeping count. Yep.
Is Maria Prandi. You know, Maria Prandi is a colleague that you know even well. And Maria was a kind of good thinker about what could be innovation in these fields. No? She knows very well the UN ecosystem, and she knows very well, or she have a kind of intuition about what we can do with the business sector. So she was, and she introduced me with the European business and UN ecosystem. That for me, as in a peripheral country, was really, really relevant.
And it sounds like now you're returning the favor and being a mentor to many as well. Juan, our time is short. I have a few, one more serious question, then we'll get to some more fun ones. Believe it or not, this is a serious one. I just watched Star Wars with my boys. I think it was Luke Skywalker famously said that failure is the greatest teacher. Maybe it was Yoda, I don't know. Can you share with us one of your great failures, one of those bumps in the road in your career, and what did you learn from it?
Yes, I think that my biggest failure is very internal, is not trust enough on me. So I even if I start 3 or 4 different organization or business, at the end I was more for competition, or maybe for try to show that I am available to do it, but not for trust directly on my ideas. No? So I think this is I am still working on that. It's always difficult to maintain to believe enough in yourself. No?
Yeah.
But in concrete business issues, I fail maybe generating long-term agreements with my partners. So some of the reasons of not to have even more succeed in some of the companies we start is not to think in long term with my partners. No, so I am working really hard on that.
It's good to be self-reflective like this, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And the other maybe is use more money than the money we have to try to grow fast. You know, so this is in the startup work. That is something that you could do because you have the venture capital industry with some capacity to give you money to grow fast. But some of in the impact industry, business and human rights industry, this connection between impact and business that is involved in what we are trying to do, is even more difficult to find venture capital to grow fast and at the same time generate impact. No, so in some moments I lose money or lose even projects because we are wasting more that the capacity of our organization to grow. No? So now we are working in both sides, grow in the speed, correct speed, but at the same time looking for some ventures or some organization that can help us.
Oh, it's good to be self-aware and acknowledge one's weaknesses and work on them. It's the only way we can improve. Fantastic, Juan. How about some light-hearted questions? What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
I like, it's difficult because here in Colombia we have a lot of fruit, but my favorite chocolate is maracuya. That is a passion fruit. Maracuya.
Passion fruit ice cream. Okay. Favorite pizza topping?
No, I love the margarita. you know,
Margarita.
tomate with cheese and more.
Favorite Star Wars movie?
Bueno, I think all of the saga, I love it. Of
The whole
saga.
thing.
Yes,
There's no one movie that stands out.
I am trying to remember, but one of the last one, the prequelas, you know.
No, the prequels. No.
Yeah,
Really?
I like this.
Okay.
I like.
All right, each to their own. Everyone knows Empire Strikes Back was the best. Anyway, do you have a favorite human rights or business sustainability movie or book that inspires you to share with us?
For me, in sustainability, I think the more useful reading that you could do is try to read about the history, and even more than sustainability. I have this idea. For me, was really useful. For example, read the story of humanity, or read about Steven Pinker, about all of his books about all of the things that humanity are trying to do in terms of peace, sustainability.
Yeah.
I think it's more useful that any books that I can recommend.
Okay.
In terms of,
Okay.
You need to understand the complexity of the humanity to understand the sustainability of human rights challenge.
That's fascinating. You've achieved so much, Juan, and you're doing so much. You're so busy. What's the future? Do you have any future career goals that you can share with us?
I am dreaming with build an strong organization that give me more leverage and resources to try to do it with scalability and replicability. So
awesome.
I think that PeaceStartup should be a big organization. Also, in our part, PeaceStartup should be a kind of matrix of a business group with some different business, closing the complex gaps that we have less than a minute.
I've got less than 2 minutes. I've just got one last question.
No, it's because of the recording. You see?
I think I've got less. I hope less. Well, let me just ask the question. Lots of students of business and human rights, international law, also formal students in the sense that their universities are going to be listening to this. What advice would you give them if they want to embark on a business and human rights, business and sustainability, business and peace career?
To start, was in this I am really deep, as you see. It's like I have this feeling that you can have a recipe to live and to develop an international career or a career. So start with your heart. You know, if you have the opportunity to go to work with your dad or your friend and understand there, go. And if you have the opportunity to go directly to a big consultancy firm, go and go deeper. And then explore the possibilities, always reading about even more, not directly human rights, maybe more history, maybe more culture. And I need to say, maybe go party more, go travel more, always with the vision to absorb what is happening on that. For me, that is part of my way to live, no? Even sometimes that implies that you need more capacity to recover, because in that way maybe you make more mistakes, but I feel you will live deeply and happy.
Juan, thank you so much for that wonderful piece of wisdom to round off. Is there anything that you wanted to share that I haven't given you an opportunity to share? Especially keeping in mind this audience of business and human rights, international law students that are listening in.
See, I think that the business and human rights should be an area of practice. So what's thing that we will start to see is that the law firms, the big consultancy firms, and even the legal areas of companies will start to have human rights professionals even more. You will see even more specialization, and maybe even at the academic industry or the academic sector building, I don't know, programs and understanding competences. So this is a good scenario to explore, but even more than that, I feel that any legal student should start exploring all of the dilemmas that we are facing as a humanity, no? All of the artificial intelligence, the issue of the peace, global conflictivity are part of the land of business and human rights, no? And again, reading about a story, but and of course, all of these information bubbles and what is happening with these new digital tools that we have. Will be involved in the conversation about business and human rights. But at the same time, I think that in the field of business and human rights, we are still missing how the business and human rights environmental is really building value, not only pointing what the companies or corporations are doing wrong, but about how we can innovate or rethink this consensus about the global agenda in terms of improving business.
And PeaceStartup is doing that at the local level. You're not just talking business and human rights, you're doing business and human rights, but for a greater cause, the sustainable development of your country.
Yes, to try to close, I feel that I don't mention that reason. I came back to Colombia 3.5 years ago because I was a kind of bored or tired about what means to work in the business and human rights environmental right now with corporation, that is more relating to solve legal problems, reporting issues, to show the best face of the corporation, and not more than, or not like work with corporation to understand some territories, some risks, some opportunities, and try to work together to improve that territories. That I feel was the different for me, more the different the reasons to came back and try to use all of these ideas, knowledge, experience in work directly with the people, of course, without forgot all of the knowledge we absorbed in the last 5-6 years in Europe after studies. No? So again, when you talk with the students, it's something like you will always have the opportunity to work with law firms, corporations, but sometimes maybe you have the opportunity to work with some local business with all of this knowledge and build a path to grow, no? To grow that business. And maybe there is a scenario of opportunity.
You've said so many things, Juan, but you know, the two ideas that I think I'm going to leave this conversation with anyway, that I've heard from you about what it is you do, is human dignity. I love how you've distilled down business and human rights and all these frameworks to this concept of human dignity. And heart is the other word that just pops into my head when I listen to you you speak, that there's more to BHR than just making a multi-million-dollar company's sustainability report more polished, or to improve human rights due diligence at that global level. You've gathered all this knowledge, skills, and expertise, and then literally brought it home to build your country. And I think that's a really inspiring story. Thank you for sharing it.
I'm really happy to share that.
Juan Andrés Cano Garcia, thank you for making the world a better place.